Everyone, I hope that you have a good time. My name is Shervin Asadi. I have many backgrounds, particularly when it comes to the language. So I'm the ESL, English as a Second Language instructor. I got the license and diploma in Canada for teaching ESL. And at the same time, I apply for being certified IELTS instructor and examiner. So now I work in Ontario as an IELTS instructor and examiner. So this is my background that I have. And I have been teaching English, particularly English prep tests such as IELTS, because you know that IELTS are very popular and global compared to other English prep tests like TOEFL. I have been teaching those English prep tests almost for 5 years. And I have, because I personally took the IELTS 4 times in order to get 9 band score, because that's one of the requirements to be as an IELTS examiner. So I hope that I can help you talk and shed light on the aspects of the test. And if some questions and some confusion, so that's talking helps you to better understanding and imagination about how the test runs and goes. And that's based on my experience. So I just want to add to my background. Currently, I'm the certified instructor in the Ontario College. I am teaching now in Senegal College as a full-time instructor there for those students who register and enroll in this college, because these colleges are somehow being sponsored by the governments. Although the students can loan, and we call it OSAP in Ontario, in order to apply and register in the course that they want or different program. So I am teaching academic writing there. I am teaching some medical courses, because my background, besides all those things, I am a medical doctor from back home. And I'm teaching those medical subjects like physiology, medical terminology, anatomy, and pathology, and pharmacology. So the last things that I want to mention, guys, this is not the end of the world. Okay, this is a test, and you want to, take it. So if I personally failed 3 times, fail means I didn't get the score that I need. That's the meaning of the fail. It doesn't mean, and it cost me almost, for 3 tests. But, as I said, it's not the end of the world. Just it's a test. Be confident. Be trust to yourself. Okay, this is the test. This is a lot of pressure. I'm ready. And let's see how it works. You need good sleep the night before the test. You have to have a good food. There is a lot of problem. You have to lower the stress. Even I know the test is, who can say, oh, I don't care, I have tomorrow IELTS test and I have 0 stress. No, that's a totally lie. So everybody faces stress, but that's not the end of the world. Just be okay, I do my best. I practice a lot. I did my mock test. I know the tips. And now I have to implement those skills in the test. So maybe you cannot perform every aspect of that test, but forget about that. Just be confident and just implement what you have to do. You are familiar with the question. You know how the test runs. All you have to do, so with rest assured and with self-confidence, try to convey and answer the questions, particularly in writing, my point, and IELTS are looking for, and time management. That's my, recommendation or suggestions or a piece of advice for those candidates who want to take the test. So the second things that I want to highly recommend candidate students before the test to do. So after we talk about the aspects of the IELTS, now we want to talk about the score and the most important part of the test, because we take the test in order to get the score that we need for continuing education, particularly in university, because you know that the university, for those English as a second language, one of the requirements is providing and submitting IELTS. And some university, based on their ranking, they ask for 7 or 6.5, different score. So, and I'm talking about academic version type of the IELTS, because basically general format of IELTS applies for those who want to settle in Canada for immigrations purposes as a permanent residence. So they ask for general IELTS. And the difference between general and academic, just they are the same test. The only difference are on reading and writing. So in the, speaking and listening are the same and similar. And again, as I said, the test, academic and general, the same format. The only difference just in 2 areas, on reading and writing. So let's talk about the score that I mentioned. So a score starts from 0 to the 9. If you don't write anything, you go to the test and you submit all the sheet blank, you get 0. So that's, the meaning of the 0. And the 9 means you get the perfect mark in 4 areas: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. So I want to first talk about the productive skills, how they grade, and how we can get a score that we need. So in writing and speaking, there are 4 areas or 4 items that the examiner are looking for, and that makes our score. The first part, we call it task achievements, means how you respond, how you answer the question. For example, in writing, they ask you, do you think parents are good teachers? Simple question, and you want to write. So as a candidate, I have to write about this topic. Parents are good teachers. If I talk about, for example, global warming, let's say talk about traffic congestion, I am out of the topic, off the track, and I cannot get the score in task achievement because I didn't cover and respond the question. That's we call it TA or task achievement. The second criteria or factor that make our score in, again, writing and speaking is GRA, grammatical range and accuracy. In simple language means grammar. So for example, in writing or speaking, do I use simple language or I use different structure, different grammar? So that's affect my score in this area. So there's a lot of things going on here, so I don't want to get in details, so just to know that's about grammar. The third factor which affect our score is CC, cohesion and coherence. Easy to follow, easy to understand. When you talk, I can grasp what you are saying. I can understand. I can get what you say. This is, we call it cohesion. You use simple words, you use sentence by sentence, but they are connected and I don't get lost. So this is about writing and it applies in speaking as well. The last factor that affects the score, we call it LR, lexical resource. It means vocabulary. So do I use single vocabulary? Do I use a variety of vocabulary? Do I have a wide variety of vocabulary? Using high-level vocabulary, so-called academic vocabulary? Am I a positive person or negative? That we call it euphemistic, means using positive language. For example, you know that we don't use some negative vocabulary like blind, like deaf, a person who unable to hear or unable to see, we call it blind. But in language, we use positive aspect and attitude in order to respect and equalize male and female because of, we are living in 21st century. For example, a person who is blind, we call it visual challenge or visual impaired. Means a person has challenge in watching or seeing something. So somehow we try to paraphrase and just be positive. That's our part of lexical resource. So again, if I want to summarize, so a score in writing and speaking, consists of task achievement, answer to the question, grammar, easy to understand, easy to follow, and vocabulary. So how about the reading and listening? Because those are not follow the score, the grades that we mentioned for speaking or writing. Basically, we have answer key for listening and reading because they have 40 questions. So questions come in different types. Could be multiple choice, short answer, matching. So I don't want to get in details. But basically, listening has 4 parts, and each part has 10 questions. Reading has 3 passages. Each passage almost has 13 questions. And if you add up those 3 passages, again, we get to the 40 questions. So, we have 40 questions for listening and reading. So how our score based on 40 questions? So that if you have 10 mistakes in listening or reading, you get 7 band score. 7, I can tell you, we have raw score and band score. Raw score means score in each area, reading, writing, speaking, or listening. And band score is kind of average of those, that we call it overall band score. So as I said, if you have 10 mistakes in listening or reading, you qualify for a raw score of 7. So if you have 12 mistakes, 6.5. 14 mistakes, 6. 16 mistakes, 5.5, and so on. And if you have, for example, let's go up, 8 mistakes, you get 5.5. 6 mistakes, you get 8, and so on. So, the number of mistakes, form our score, but for those candidate or wants to continue education, particularly in university, and they ask for 7, the maximum mistakes could be 10 in listening or reading. And that's why we have to strategize, we have plan, okay, I need 7, so the maximum mistakes is 10 mistakes. And imagine the listening has 4 parts, so now I have to distribute 10 mistakes in 4 sections, 4 parts in listening, for example. So that's the way that we can focus and plan in order to get the score that we need. So the next question could be how we can improve, okay? So, for example, my level is 5.5 or 5 or 6. How I can get 7? So, as I said, in listening and reading, so you have to reduce the number of mistakes. So the less you have mistakes, the more or you increase your score. So again, we have to have a strategy for that to reducing our mistakes. But the most problem is in productive skill, in writing and speaking, because you have to come up, you have to produce some ideas, some thoughts. So that's the most problematic areas for candidate, writing and speaking. So let's say someone got 5.5, and now he or she wants to improve and get 6.5, at least one score to increase. So again, remember the 4 criteria that we mentioned: task achievement, answer the question, grammar, easy to follow, connectedness, and vocabulary. So from my experience, candidate, when it comes to writing and speaking question, in task achievement and cohesion, coherence, they don't have problem. They answer the question, they know how to connect them. But the most problem or area that affect their score is in 2 areas, grammar and vocabulary. So, for example, basically, if we want to write sentence in English, we know that we use this structure: subject, verb, object. I go to school, I play basketball. Okay? I can use subject, verb, object, object. I can add, for example, I can say, I write to John a letter. So I, subject, write, verb, a letter, first object, to John, second object. So I can expand and develop our body when I add more object. But again, that's the simple writing: subject, followed by verb, followed by object. But we need a structure. We need complex structure. We need sentence more than one subject, more than one verb. That's we call it complex or complicated structure. I'll give another example. So let's say Toronto is a big city, the city that we are and we live here. So Toronto is a big city. So Toronto subject is the verb, and a big city is as an object. Okay? So again, the same rule: subject, verb, object. Now I want to make this sentence more complicated, more attractive. I want to increase my score in writing. So I would say Toronto, which is located or situated, so similar verbs, in Ontario, is a big city. So if you compare the sentence that I mentioned before, Toronto is a big city, I say extra information: Toronto, which is located in Ontario, is a big city. Okay? So now let's analyze this sentence. So Toronto is the first subject, which is second subject, is located is the verb for which, and what is the verb for Toronto is. So as you can see, we have 2 subject and 2 verb. And now we call it complex structure. I changed a simple sentence, subject, verb, object, to 2 subject and 2 verb structure. That we call it complex structure. So as soon as you write that kind of sentence, that's at least half a score, increase your mark, because it shows to us as an examiner, this writer, this candidate is able to write 2 subject, 2 verb, and they keep the balance. Because some people use 2 subject with 1 verb, or they use 1 subject with 2 verbs. Again, those are mistakes. But in the best scenario, you use 2 subject followed by 2 verbs. So I just give an example, so we can, working on grammar and some structures that you add, the more you add the structure, you increase your mark in writing. Because this test wants to how you perform, how you can show your writing. They don't care about the contents of your writing, to be honest.
Because this is not knowledge test. Nobody Google, nobody to verify, to check it out, this information or this sentence scientifically or factually are true or not. No, we don't care. We just care about how to write and what to write. Did you write correctly? Error mistakes? Do you have error-free you don't have any mistakes? So we focus on those areas. I want to shed light on that because student or candidate who take the test are concerned and worried. Oh my God, I have no idea. I don't know what to say. Okay, just put sentence together, but try to put it in different structure, in different, style to show that you have a variety of structures in your mind. You are able to write. You can put it down. That's it. And that's apply in speaking. So that's our two areas that we mentioned. What to write, how to write. What to speak or how to speak. Hello everyone. So we continue the questions. The question that many parents might ask is how students or candidate who wants to get a high band score, particularly 8 in general version of IELTS for immigration purposes, how they can achieve and get that score. So as I said before, academic and general are different in two areas, in writing and reading. But speaking and listening are the same. So in order to get high score, you need to get in each band score, in writing, reading, speaking, and listening, at least 8. Because the overall band score is a software, is kind of average. So for every score that you get for writing, that's we call it raw score. Raw means not cooked in writing, reading, and then they put it in the software, is, as I said, like an average, and then they get the overall band score. Okay, so in order to get 8, as I said, it means in each area you have to get 8 at least. Or if, for example, if you get, in some areas less than 8, you have to make it up. Maybe you get 8.5 or 9. But you know that the highest mark is 9. It's kind of without any faults and mistakes. So it could be a little bit, I don't want to say it's impossible, but it's difficult to achieve that point. But if we have a strategy, we can get 8. How? So I'm focused on writing and speaking, again, as a productive skill, because that's the most problematic area. In reading and listening as a receptive skills, so practicing mock tests and doing a lot of tests before maybe help very effective and very productive, because as I said, in order to get 8 in listening and reading, you maximum could have 4 mistakes or 5 mistakes. Okay? But that requires a lot of practice by the candidate, and then go through the tips and points. But my suggestion in writing and speaking, particularly in writing, how we can get 8. The good thing is IELTS publish the band descriptor. It means they beautifully explain, okay, if a candidate wants to get 8, we need this, and that. Person who wants to get 8 in speaking, we need those areas. So band score, band descriptor. So as long as you follow that band descriptor, the guidelines, so definitely you can get 8 in those areas. So, but the point is we have to practice a lot, we have to strategize, we have to know what we want, because if you know what they are looking for, and you have to show them that you implement and you put those materials, so easily you can get those 8 in this case, but as long as you cover the guidelines. So I don't want to go in details about that because it requires those descriptors I have to talk. But I just want to summarize that, just give an example. For example, in English, we say for appreciation, so we say thank you. So when I say thank you, it means I thank you because I as a subject, as a person who thanked you. And we say I subject, thank the verb, and you object. Again, the same structure, subject, verb, object. But I can change this sentence. I can say, for example, your contribution or your assistance in this regard, in this matter, is profoundly or greatly, deeply appreciated. So when I say this sentence, exactly the same meaning, thank you. But, this sentence gets 8 mark. Why? I thank you, maximum 5.5, because you use simple the structure, subject, verb, object, but I turned into nominalization form. So nominalization is kind of a structure. So instead of using subject, verb, we use bunch of nouns together as a subject or as an object, because verb is always verb. Verb means define and explain the action, behavior. I cannot change the meaning of the verb, but all I can do, I can change subject or object part. So your contribution in this regard, all is my subject, and the verb just is appreciated. But I put it in passive voice. And because I want to make it more attractive, I use some adverb that we call it collocation. So profoundly, greatly, deeply, so to intensify the degree of appreciation. And then we say your assistance, contribution in this matter or regard is profoundly appreciated. So this sentence get 8, but that sentence that I mentioned, I thank you, get maximum 5 or 5.5. That's the way that I look at your writing. So we have to know, we have to work on nominalization structure for the candidate. So I'll just give an example to show how we can improve and how we can strategize in order to get high score, particularly in writing and speaking, for those people, particularly who want to settle in Canada as immigrants. So that's my point. The next question that we have here, Chinese students' problems. So, because I'm working with those students, those candidates, particularly from China, and they are very smart, very, hard-working students. So the problem that I notice, to be honest with you guys, is those students think Chinese thought, Chinese concepts, and all they want to do using translator. Google Translator, there is a lot of software. We have a smartphone in our hands, so people easily can translate even in WeChat. So you see there is an option as a translator. So you can, in your preferred language, you can just by push the button see the meaning. But that's word by word. Literally is word by word translation. So, for example, you see something and you have zero knowledge in English. Okay, so how do I know? I have zero knowledge in Mandarin, so I need translator. But how do you think that those translators help me to talk or to write? Not at all, because all they do just translate word by word and put them together. And when you read, maybe you can guess what they are talking, but it's not exactly the way that we write, particularly in terms of academic, criteria, academic, guidelines. So that's the problem that those students are trying to do, particularly in writing and speaking. And we need to think like English people, particularly in North America. They use very simple language to convey their message. We don't need to explain, go in detail to say something and make confusion and, understandable the message that you want to say. So there's a lot of example for that. So, but as I said, it requires the students know the English concepts, and they can listen to the radio, they can listen to the TV news or any talk show, and then they, because you have to internalize these concepts. It doesn't mean overnight. It requires time. The more you try, the more you listen, because some candidates are auditory learner. They just want to listen. Some candidates are visual learner. They want to see. And some candidates are kinesthetic learner. It means they want to touch. They want to feel it. So by combination of those three techniques, you can, internalize the skill. Particularly in this case, language skill. We are trying to internalize the North American concepts. So that's why it requires those students, try and sitting with the native speaker or even being in the area, in the real environment, and they touch and they feel and they see and they hear it and listen to that. So, that's the most problematic problem. For example, as far as I know, you don't have a past tense in, Chinese language. As far as a student told me, for example, in Mandarin, so you say, I go to school today, or you say, I go to school yesterday. But in English, we have three tense. So past, present, future. So, that's maybe requires students, struggle to internalize. I have to put in three tenses. When I want to say message, I want to convey the message, it depends on when it happens. If it's right now, or in the past, or in the future, maybe tomorrow is our future, or 10 hours later is our future. So future could be very close, could be far. But the point is we have three different tenses. So that's requiring a structure. We are talking about grammar. So, we have to build up the basic English, and then we have to mix the English concepts, and then practicing, like a little kid, So I told to my students, a little kid, around 2, 3, we call it toddler, that they can talk to their parents, to the dad, mom, they can say some words, but do you think they sat with tutors or they went to academic or university at all? They try to internalize. So, they see, they watch, they listen, and then they touch it. And then they say, Mom, I need, for example, ball, this and that. So this is the way that we have to build up. And again, we have to work on that to think first American concepts and build up gradually, and it requires time. One of the most, and I think not one of the most important things that I forgot to mention until now is error-free, or in other words, zero mistakes in writing. It doesn't matter how you write simple or complicated, but the IELTS looking for error-free. If you write an essay, 240 let's say, and without any mistakes means grammatical mistakes, could be punctuation mistakes, could be misspelling mistakes. So, those areas, I'm telling you, definitely you get 6 or maybe sometime in terms of vocabulary and not repetitive vocabulary all the time. Say increase, instead of saying, okay, one time, say the tax rate increase, and then you want to say, instead of increase, you can say, for example, and if you don't have repetitive vocabulary, I'm telling you, as an examiner, the minimum score that you can get 6 to 6.5 in the best case scenario. In the worst case scenario, I'm telling, I promise nobody can get below 6. But on condition, 0 mistakes, error-free mistakes. I mean, we don't want to have any mistakes. That's the skills. So that's why we call it proofreading skills. So after you write, your essay, your report, your letter, so in academic or general, you have at least dedicate 2 minutes to proofreading to avoid silly mistakes. You know, silly mistakes means mistakes that because your mind are under pressure, because of the time management, because of the exam. That happens. We are human beings. And that's natural and normal. But we try to fix it before submitting to the authorities to be graded or they collected our paper. My point again is 0 mistakes writing, error-free writing. Okay. The last things that I want to underscore and emphasize is time management. So budgeting your time. Reading is 1 hour, but in reading you get 3 passages. Each passage takes 20 minutes. So that's why, with simple calculation, 20 minutes multiplied 3 equals 60 minutes or 1 hour. But you know that those 3 passages are not equal in terms of contents, in terms of the length. So, it starts from easy, moderate, and strong in terms of difficulty. So, okay, I read a simple text in 20 minutes. Now I have to read a little bit difficult in 20 minutes, and then I have to, again, spend 20 minutes for the most difficult one. So that's why I have to manage my time. So I highly recommend students start backward. That's I have done for myself, and I got the result that I need. So start backward. This is one strategy. So reading number 3 first, and then 2, and then 1. And when you don't know the questions, because you have to answer the question in reading, just skip. You don't want to cover everything, You want to save time. At least you have to be 2 minutes ahead of time. So this is about in reading, because that's the most problem because of the budgeting the time. Students or candidates are fall behind and they cannot even finish on the 60 minutes or 1 hour for reading. For writing as well, again, we get 2 writing. So one could be in academic report writing, and the second one is task 2 or essay writing. But the mark is different. Task 1, it's 1/3 of your score, and task 2, and as an essay, is 2/3 of the score. So imagine you have problem with the time. There's no guarantee that I can finish all those tasks in 60 minutes. But which one makes sense? So it makes sense that I start with task 2 first. Just in case, if I couldn't cover within 60 minutes, at least I cover task 2. And because it makes, form more score, I save more score there. So that's why you have to have a strategy. And then budgeting your time and time management. So that's why in the test, in the practice that we mentioned for students to writing an essay, we say, okay, guys, start your clock. And like a stopwatch, so there is a lot of application on the smartphone. As soon as it shows 40 minutes, stop writing. That's one, just write in within 20 minutes. As long, when it's, you get to the point 20 minutes beyond, stop it, because there is no benefits or there is no, let's say, advantage if you are beyond the time. So because IELTS wants put under pressure how you perform. That's the purpose of this test. So that's why if they give you 2 hours, I promise you, many candidates get a very high score. But the problem is we have just 1 hour for 2 writing. So that's about the time management, and it applies in the listening, because listening and speaking, somehow you have to follow the instructions. So because in the speaking, we have 4 sections, so each section almost 10 minutes. And I mean, if you fall behind, you lose the score from that part, and then they go to the second section. So it's not like writing or even reading that you have to manage by your own. And in speaking, again, the examiner is in front of you and they ask the question. So if you cannot answer, or they stop you and they continue asking question for part 2 or part 3. I mean, time management, my point is this, are very, very paramount, important in writing and reading. I want to mention, guys, this is not the end of the world, okay? This is a test, and you want to, take it. So if I personally failed 3 times, fail means I didn't get the score that I need. That's the meaning of the fail. It doesn't mean, and it cost me almost, for 3 tests. But, as I said, it's not the end of the world. Just it's a test. Be confident. Be trust to yourself. Okay, this is the test. This is a lot of pressure. I'm ready. And let's see how it works. You need good sleep the night before the test. You have to have a good food. There is a lot of problem. You have to lower the stress. Even I know the test is, who can say, oh, I don't care, I have tomorrow IELTS test and I have 0 stress. It's a totally lie. So everybody faces stress, but that's not the end of the world. Just be okay, I do my best. I practice a lot. I did my mock test. I know the tips. And now I have to implement those skills in the test. So maybe you cannot perform every aspect of that test, but forget about that. Just be confident and just implement what you have to do. You are familiar with the question. You know how the test runs. All you have to do, so with rest assured and with self-confidence, try to convey and answer the questions, particularly in writing, my point, and IELTS are looking for, and time management. That's my recommendation. With regard to, the problem for students, I can give an example. For example, I say Toronto is a big city, okay? So Toronto is our subject, is the verb, a big city is our object. So again, the simple structure in English is subject, verb, at least 3 mock tests. So we prepare cater student with mock tests. So the same environment, even the answer sheet exactly that they see in the IELTS test. And then student try to be in this, the real scenario, real environment. And they see, okay, this is how I can manage in terms of time management, in terms of the questions. So they can, find their weak point, their strength point, and they can handle it, because that's like a warm up for a workout. So you cannot just jump and say, okay, I lift this box, things. So you need to warm up. You need to get your body ready and to do that. So that's why at least I recommend 3 mock tests.